As many of you know, money can either kind of propel us forward toward that sort of vision that we have for our future, or it can hold us back. It can actually get in the way. It's one of the prime things that men and women fight about. Josh mentioned I've got a new book just came out this past week called Money and Marriage. I spent a lot of time researching the topic, and as I researched money within the context of relationships, I found myself thinking, well, no wonder it's so tough for man and woman to get along financially, because check this out. The research shows that when men are asked, what are some of your most important kind of indulgences? Men are much more likely to choose electronic gear, the big screen TV, the computer gear, the stereo stuff. Women are much more likely than men to choose travel as one of their favorite indulgences. When asked about their financial feelings, men are much more likely to express confidence around money. Women, the research, don't shoot the messenger, I'm just telling you what the research says. The research shows that women are much more likely than men to express some anxiety around finances. There's just a lot going against us when it comes to money. And if we don't talk about these differences, if we don't understand where we're coming from financially, these very different places that men and women tend to be coming from, we can end up living very separate, even secretive financial lives. Research among people who've been married for some time finds that 44% say it's okay to keep financial secrets from each other. Not exactly a good idea in marriage, right? Another 60% say that they don't even know when their own spouse plans to retire. Can you imagine? You see your spouse heading out the door at the same time, typical time in the morning, but this time instead of grabbing the briefcase, they grab the golf clubs, and that's your first hint that they have retired, right? Maybe we should be talking about money. One of the things I've been really fascinated about as I've studied money management over the years is that, knowledge is really easy to get. If you have any question about money, you can get a pretty credible answer. You can get some crazy answers too, but you can get some pretty credible answers pretty quickly through the internet. They're just a keystroke or two away. And yet people continue to wrestle with money. So clearly we need more than head knowledge. We need more than information. We do need information and knowledge, but we also need an understanding of how we're wired up, especially when it comes to marriage. The Bible says that we've been fearfully and wonderfully made. When you're engaged, you think just about everything about your intended is wonderful, right? And then you get married and some of those same things start to strike fear in your hearts. And so it's really important to understand that God has given each of us certain wirings, and it's a gift how God has wired us. So we need to learn to use the strengths that He's given us and minimize the weaknesses. Debt is obviously a problem in many of our lives. Unfortunately, in this country of ours, it's very frequent. And back to that study that I mentioned before, what the researchers have found is that consumer debt casts a pall over marriages in general. They found that it fuels a sense of financial unease among couples. They found that couples that have debt or acquire debt early in their marriage, and I'm speaking mostly of consumer debts, so credit card debt, finance vehicles, things like that, it increases the likelihood that they will fight about money matters, and it even increases the likelihood that they will fight over other things as well. Debt is a significant issue in marriage, and so I strongly encourage, if you've got debt, anything other than what I call a reasonable mortgage, which I'll define a little bit later, I strongly encourage you to make this a very high priority to get out from under debt. Because no matter what it takes, whether it takes years, it took me 4.5 years to pay off my 20 grand of credit card debt, however long it takes, once you do get out of debt, you will be so free. Did you know that credit card companies are incredibly generous? Did you know that? They're very generous organizations. See, here's the thing. If you go no further into debt, you make the minimum payment due each month that the credit card company requires, then each month, out of the kindness of the hearts of the credit card companies, you will be required to pay a little bit less each month. Look at that. It's $120 this month, then it's $119.40, then $118.80, then $118.20. Isn't that incredibly kind of them? Love that. Who asks you for less? Of course, it isn't kindness, it's math. If you're going no further into debt and your minimum payment is based on the percentage of your balance due, then over time that balance is going down a little bit, which means your monthly payment is going down a little bit. And if you do the credit card get out of debt plan like the credit card company would like you to, you will stay in debt approximately forever. Be generous. Get a small emergency fund going. If you've got debt, get the debt wiped out. Get the emergency fund built up to 6 months. If you've done all those things, now you're ready to invest. And so my encouragement to you is to get in the game as soon as that's possible for you. Here's two different hypothetical couples, age 25 each. The first couple, they both find $200 a month, and they're able to get 8% over a long period of time as an investment return. The first couple, they're able to do this for 10 years, the first 10 years of their marriage, but then their parents needed some financial help. They weren't able to save any more for their later years, so they invested $200 a month. They got 8%, and then after 10 years, they didn't add any more, but they kept it in that investment to let it continue to earn interest over time. And over time, over the next 35 years, by age 70, their $24,000 investment turned into $600,000 because they got that 8% return each year. The other couple, they had things to buy. They had furniture to buy, clothing to buy, vacations to take. They couldn't find the money until they were 35. But by the time they were 35, they said, well, we'll make up for it, so we'll invest for the next 35 years. So for 35 years, they put $200 a month in at 8% interest, and by the time they turned 70, they put in, whatever, 3 times the amount as the first couple. They did it for 35 years versus 10 years, and they ended up with less. That's because of the power of compound interest. The earlier you can get in the game and get compound interest working for you, the better. Don't we feel the pressure to buy as big a house as we possibly can? Oh, your income will grow, you'll grow into the mortgage payment. Probably not going to happen. A lot of us, the house owns us. So because housing is largely our biggest financial decision, the biggest expense category in our spending plan, we've really got to get the housing decision right. The Bible says this, finish your outdoor work and get your fields ready. After that, build your house. In essence, it's saying get your career established before committing to a house. One of the foremost marriage researchers in the country is a guy named John Gottman, and he said this. He said, fighting, when it airs grievances and complaints, can be one of the healthiest things a couple can do for their relationship. Indeed, he said, how you fight is one of the most telling ways to diagnose the health of your marriage. So not so critical to avoid conflict, but very important how you sort through conflicts. Don't get defensive. So, a defensive play might be, I have to spend $60 every time I play golf. That's how much it costs. That doesn't tend to work too well in the context of a relationship. That does not convey understanding or sympathy or a dealing with the certain facts of how you've both committed to using this budget and keeping your spending within certain constraints. Much more helpful to say something like this. Let's take a look. If I overspent, I'll make it up next month, all right? Now you've got the budget tool. You can see objectively. You've been tracking your spending. It's not an emotional decision. I think you think it's true. You can take a look at the facts within your spending plan and see how much did you really spend on golf and what are you going to do about it to make things right next month.